So we left off with the decree that's gone out through the land of the Medes and the Persians to kill all of the Jews. And Haman is the primary character here involved in this. And so what we get to chapter 4, Esther hears about this plan. And Mordecai, the one who raised her, her cousin, tells her she must go to see the king. Well, the only problem with this, if you're not invited into the king's presence, if you come in uninvited and he doesn't extend his scepter to you, you get killed. And so Mordecai gives her this exhortation. Starting in verse 11, we'll read all of this and then see what Mordecai told her. It says, all the king's servants and the people of the king's province know that for any man or woman who comes to the king, to the inner court, who is not summoned, he has but one law, that he be put to death, unless the king holds out to him the golden scepter so that he may live. And I have not been summoned to come to the king for these 30 days. So this is Esther's response to Mordecai, saying, hey, listen, you're telling me to go see the king, but you know what? If I go in there and I'm not summoned, there's no other law except if he doesn't extend his scepter, I'm going to be killed. So, and they related Esther's words to Mordecai. Then Mordecai told her, and this is one of the most famous passages in all of Esther, the book of Esther, is contained in verse 14 as we come up on, we'll start with verse 13. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do not imagine that you in the king's palace can escape any more than all the Jews. Because she's what? She's a Jew. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not attained royalty for such a time as this. I think we use that a lot, and I think it's very appropriate. We've all pretty much been born and put in place for such a time as this, whatever our this is. Well, her this was, she's a Jew married to the king who's made a decree to kill all the Jews. So what a position she's in. She's at least in a position of influence, possibly in a position of favor if the king's not tired of her. Kings can get tired of their wives in these days and just come up with a new one. We see that kind of thing. So she's going at risk. And but what she tells the people, she tells them, okay, I'll do this. But she said in verse 15, then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai. And verse 16, then we're in chapter 4. Go assemble all the Jews who are found in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maidens also will fast in the same way. And thus I will go into the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. Well, so she's going to risk it all, but she's saying, hey, I want, you people to put something on the line too. Gather all the Jews together, fast and pray for me 3 days and 3 nights. Don't eat or drink anything. Well, if I perish, I perish. They may perish from not drinking anything. 3 days without water is about as far as you can go. And and this is what sometimes in these days people call a black fast. Because it's like, if you don't make it through this one, everything goes black. You're gone. So she's calling for real commitment to the cause. Says, I'll go in and risk my life on behalf of the Jewish people, but you guys put your life on the line by fasting and praying for 3 days and calling upon the Lord to help. So Esther goes in to the king. She finds favor, and Esther goes in she goes in before the king and Haman, and she has a banquet. That's what the king right away. When Esther comes in, he gives her favor, and he says, what can I do for you? I give you up to half of the kingdom. She says, just come to a banquet, you and Haman. So they come to a banquet, and the only thing she does at this banquet is she says, come to me again tomorrow for another banquet. Okay, so this gives Haman really time to get excited. Okay, this is in chapter 5. He's thinking, man, things are going well for me. Just me, the king, and the queen are going to a banquet. I mean, the queen has invited the king, but the only other one she's invited is me. He's feeling pretty good. So in verse 9 of chapter 5, it says, then Haman went out that day glad and pleased of heart. He's dancing down the street. This is cool. Things are really going well. The king has given his favor in that his request to kill all the Jews has been granted, and now he is the only one besides the king invited to the queen's banquet. It says, verse 9, but when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, and that he did not stand up or tremble before him, Haman was filled with anger against Mordecai. He just can't get over, he's just obsessed with Mordecai and Mordecai's lack of paying him the homage that he thinks he should. Verse 12, Haman gets his whole family together, and it says, Haman also said, even Esther the queen, let no one but me come with the king to the banquet which she had prepared. And tomorrow also I am invited by her with the king. Yet all this does not satisfy me every time I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then Zeresh, his wife, Haman's wife, and all his friends said to him, have a gallows 50 cubits high made in the morning. 50 cubits, you know what that is? A cubit's about 18 inches. It's like from your elbow to the tip of your fingers approximately. And so maybe about 18 inches. 50 cubits, 75 feet high. That is one tall gallows. That is a gallows built so that everybody in the city can see what's going on. That's incredible. Anyway, they build it. It says, have a gallows 50 cubits high made, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on it. Then go joyfully with the king to the banquet, and the advice pleased Haman, so he had the gallows made. Wow, okay. And they did this in a day. They made this big old high place to hang people on, and they're going to hang. The idea is you're tired of Mordecai getting his way. You've got the order to kill all the Jews, but let's take care of Mordecai tomorrow. In the morning, you get up and have him hanged. So we're moving into chapter 6, and a curious thing happens here. Here we see the God's timing, his providence is all throughout Esther. Esther would be an incredible book to make a movie out of. I mean, anyone thinking about a movie, I think there's maybe been some attempts at it, but wow, this could be such a fascinating movie. It really needs to be done in this time. So any of you movie producers out there, take that to heart. Chapter 6, verse 1, it says, during the night, the king could not sleep. So he gave an order to bring the book of records, the chronicles that were read before the king. And it was found written what Mordecai had reported concerning Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who were doorkeepers, that they had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this? And then the king's servants who attended him said, nothing has been done for him. So here we've got this whole thing, and what timing. I mean, here Esther has Haman and the king for a banquet, says, come back tomorrow for another banquet. And the night between that, all of a sudden the king can't sleep. I don't know if it was indigestion from the first banquet. You know, we're not told anything, but he just can't sleep. And so he wants to read the chronicles, the books written. And you know, the things are, when these things are written, this law of the Medes and the Persians is, this is written, it's got to stay written, this is like settled. And so they're reading it, and he asks, what's been done for Mordecai? He saved my life. They say, nothing. So the king, verse 4, said, who's in the court? Now Haman had just entered the court. What? Had just entered the outer court of the king's palace in order to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai on the gallows, which he had prepared for him. So look at the timing here. The timing is incredible. All the times in history, what a day this was. And the king's servant said to him, behold, Haman is standing in the court. And the king said, let him come on in. So Haman came in, and the king said to him, what is to be done for the man whom the king desires to honor? And Haman said to himself, whom would the king desire to honor more than me? I mean, hey, things are going well. The edict that I wanted to happen happened. I called the banquet. I got another banquet going today. Then Haman said to the king, for the man who the king desires to honor, let them bring a royal robe, which the king has worn, and the horse on which the king has ridden, and on whose head a royal crown has been placed. And let the robe and the horse be handed over to one of the king's most noble princes, and let them array the man whom the king desires to honor, and lead him on horseback through the city square, and proclaim before them, thus it shall be done to the man whom the king desires to honor. And so here Haman declares the reward that he thinks is going to be given to him, and that's where we're going to leave off for now.